Welcome everybody. This is Dee Reinhardt with Illinois WorkNet. Today we are starting our community-based organization technical assistance call. Please check in in the pod to the right of the chat pod. If you have any questions during the course of the presentation, please type them into the chat pod. I think I have a DHS office calling me right now, so hopefully we can get through this webinar without my phone ringing again. Please check in. We have some flyers in the file pod, and we have another one that we're preparing based on our presentation today. We have calendar instructions in the file pod, so if you have not already set up all of your appointments through the end of December, please do that. We did cover that in the webinar last week briefly, and so you can watch last week's recording. We have the reverse referral process, and what we have decided to do with that reverse referral process is we need to send a notice off to the primary contact at the office that you are going to be sending your customer to. Send an email to that DHS primary contact with the information, no names, but the initials and last four of Social Security number for the customer so that we can track how that person's coming in, so that we can make sure that they show up or don't. All right. So now, did you answer the question in the polling question for, does your organization currently use an internal individualized employment plan or something similar to the ISTEP? So please answer that polling question for us. All right, and Olivia, can you make sure that Tammy's mic is on?
Yeah, it should be open.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay,
Looks like everybody can hear you.
And Dee, I just wanted to comment on that topic on reverse referrals. We did check with our IT. At this time, don't have that communication between the DHS office. I do think that is going to be a PII concern if you're sending any type of initials in the last four Social Security. So we're not going to communicate that way. We're going to set up a different process. Basically, what we want to do is we want to be able to track reverse referrals because we're trying to decide if these referrals are even showing up to the DHS office, or if maybe they're going to maybe a wrong office, or maybe they're talking to somebody at the DHS office, say the front desk, that maybe isn't aware of the EPIC program. So we just want to be able to track these clients, through the process. We do have to do some additional talk on how we're going to do that, but at this time, just continue doing what you're doing. Don't do any communication with any client information at all to the DHS site. And we will follow up with you in the near future of how we're going to try and track that. So, sorry, Dee, I should have provided that information to you earlier.
No problem. I would prefer to have proper information going out than me telling somebody the wrong thing. So, all right. Okay. And then we also have in the file pod the flow chart of how things go, and we have an easier document that we're getting reviewed by DHS right now to make sure that we have all of the systems in place. We will be sharing an updated an accompanying document to that flow chart because we did hear that several people were a little bit confused by that. So we'll make sure that we have that document out for you as well. Okay, and there we go. I'm checking one more thing. And, okay, so let's go back to let's talk about the dashboard. Are there any issues that we need to talk about on the dashboard, Olivia? If you want to share your screen up.
All righty, give me 1 second. All right, can everybody hear me and see my screen okay? Raise your hand if you can. All
I
righty.
can.
So I'm just going to go through the Enrolled in ISTEP Dashboard and just cover the areas that we need to be keeping an eye on. So the first area that we need to make sure customers don't get stuck in is the referral accepted and enrollment started, enrollment required. We have 24 people in this section. What this section is talking about is once the 2151 has been uploaded with client services initiated for any customer, they also need to be enrolled in the training program of their interest the same time. Whenever you enroll a customer in the training program, this is saving them a spot in that training program so it doesn't fill up before it's time to start. You can do this on the progress page under the training program enrollment. You just select a drop down and it says not enrolled or enrolled, and you just select them as enrolled in that and then you select the program they're enrolled in. So it's not too difficult. So if you have any customers that you've initiated services with, they need to be immediately enrolled in those training programs. We can't wait until the training program starts. They need to be enrolled as soon as you've initiated services with them, and then you need to be engaging them until that training program does start. The next area is the CBO needs to upload past due. We have 174 customers who do not have a 2151 uploaded for last month, and today is the last day to upload those. You're supposed to upload them between the 1st and 5th of every month, and today is the 5th. So we really need to make sure that we're getting their monthly progress recorded every month for the following month and uploading that in the 2151A and then filling out their ISTEP to match what they have done for the previous month. So after we get off this webinar, if you guys want to go in and check out your customers and upload their 2151A forms, that will be awesome. And then also, while we're on the topic of the 2151A, I just also wanted to mention again that as soon as the customer initiates services with you guys, you not only need to enroll them, but we also need to make sure that we're uploading a 2151A with an initial plan outline in it. You just go through and check the boxes that you would like to work with the customers in the different areas. And those need to be uploaded for every customer from this point forward. You don't need to go back and backtrack your customers. But from now on, it's really important to make sure we're getting that plan document in there and getting that input in the ISTEP as well. And then the last section on the Enrolled dashboard we need to keep an eye on is the exited status. Completed documentation needs uploaded. Completion documentation needs uploaded. We have 2 customers in there. So what this is saying is you have exited a customer either successfully or unsuccessfully, and then once you click update, red text will appear in that same box that will tell you what is needed in order to complete that customer in the exiting process. So they may need their 2151A uploaded with the completion status marks. They may need their employment information put in there. So just go ahead and check on those customers. You can go to the exit status section of the progress page, and in red text, it will tell you the documentation that is missing. And it looks like there is a question from Carmen. We have asked this question before, but
Olivia, let's let Sarah answer that question for us.
Okay. Sounds good. So we're going to move on to the ISTEP dashboard. Computer's had a hard day. He's thinking really hard about this. Okay, so for the ISTEP dashboard, it's broken down into the personal development, career planning, and academic training. For the personal development, not every customer will need steps in this section, but there you will run across a couple of customers that will need some personal development steps included in their plan. However, for the career planning and academic and technical training sections, every customer should have steps in these sections. That is the focus of EPIC, working with these customers to get training so then they can get jobs. So if you have a customer who is listed in target occupation not selected, and we have 219 customers, we really need to go in and make sure that we have their target occupation put in on their ISTEP. This is how we track our customers, and our customers can flow and move, and then everybody can go back and know where they're at. So you can get their target occupation from the application they filled out in EPIC, which you can find in EPIC in their profile information. And then you will just input their target occupation in there. Most of you will probably know what their target occupation is just from working with them. And then the other section is the no steps identified, where there's 145 customers who have no career planning steps identified. Everybody should have some sort of career planning step identified, so this number should be 0. So if you have any customers who do not yet have steps identified in career planning, we really need to make sure we're going in there and filling that out. And the same with the academic and technical training. If there's no steps identified, which we have 204 customers who have no steps identified, we really need to make sure we're going in there and including the academic and technical training steps that the customer is taking, has taken, whichever those are applicable. So do you guys have any questions about the ISTEP dashboard?
Yes, we have a question from Kelsey that says, what academic and technical training steps would be appropriate for someone only doing job search? That would be under the career planning. I don't know that we have, do you know of a step that we have under academic and technical?
Yeah, I'm not sure off of the top of my head what it's called, but I do know we have one in there that is about exploring different jobs and job searching. I can pull it up and test. So the customer is not doing any type of training or academic thing at all. They're just job searching for EPIC.
Because they're done with their training or they're not appropriate for training?
And that would be my question, too. The last resort for these clients is to be placed in work readiness activities and then employment and placement. But one of the things, if an individual is not interested or maybe they're capable of participating in a structured training activity or structured classroom or certification activity, work experience, paid work experience is something that you need to look at using for these clients also, along with work readiness and then employment and retention activities. And I see that, so the customer got CNA certification with WIO.
CNC.
IT field. Yeah, so in that particular case, well, we can talk about this offline, Kelly. You can give me a call, Tammy, on this. And I know that particular situation. But like I said, in the minimum, work experience and then placement is where we need to go with these guys. But we also may need to look at realigning that client with the appropriate provider in that case, too. But we can talk about that offline.
So Olivia found the step right there. And what we can also do, if you've got something in particular that we need to add, we have the ability to add additional steps. We've told you all along that if there's some steps that you need to be added to any of the portions of the ISTEP, please send us that information, and then they can, then we can get that added for you.
And this is another reason in the survey we're asking you if you have internal employment and training plans that you're using. On our visit with FNS a couple weeks ago, one of the things that we noticed is, and I'm sure a lot of you do have your own internal employment and training plans, that service your entire client population. So what we want to do is make sure we're aligning, because we do have the ISTEP, which provides the information that we need for our programs, and the ISTEP will be used. It's more of a universal tool that will be used in the whole WIOA system also. But we want to take a look at your employment and training plans and make sure we're aligning appropriately with everybody's plans. And one of the things we can look at, too, is what is in your plans and what would be something that we potentially might need to incorporate in the ISTEPs also. But our biggest goal is to try and eliminate duplication as much as we can on certain things. So that's why please respond to our survey, and if you do have an internal plan that you can share with us, we really want to look at those. And we're going to have a staff that's going to be working on that to see how we can better align, employment and training plans.
Okay, we need to jump to the 2151A because Sarah has to leave quickly. So let's move on. Olivia, if you can open up Areli's telephone so that Sarah can open up. The one thing when you go to the progress page for the customer and you download the 2151A, you do need to open it up in Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Reader. And then the person's information that we have in the system will automatically be filled in, and the provider information will automatically be filled in. And then if, Sarah, is your microphone open?
Yes.
Okay. So now, if you would like to explain to our audience what are the portions of this form that need to be completed.
So, hello everyone. You want to make sure that you complete any information regarding SNAP ENT. So, in section...
If you can see the screen right now, I do have the form up.
Right. So, where it says use one change progress report, this is 2151, you want to make sure anything that applies to the customer, job skills training, SNAP ENT, earn fair community work, any of that applies to the customer, you want to make sure that you put the time and the start date the customer is actually engaged.
So if our customers are participating in EPIC, would they really click or check the earn fair?
Not earn fair, because if you have customers that are participating in EPIC, some of the CBOs are participating with earn fair.
All of the CBOs that are on this call are participating with EPIC.
Okay.
All of the customers that they're dealing with are associated with EPIC.
Right, but not for earn fair.
Not for earn fair. This is only for EPIC people.
Right, this is only for EPIC people, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So you wouldn't do the earn fair portion, but you would definitely do the community work, the basic education, the work experience, anything that applies to the customer and the customer actually was engaged with in that month. You want to put the time and the start date.
Okay.
Which one of these do they have to select? Any one of these?
Anything that says SNAP ENT, because the other ones are TANF.
So all of the ones that are over here on the, I'm sorry, my screen. Let me pull up our form that we did. So this is directions that we're working on right now. So they would not fill out the TANF items.
Right.
They would fill out the subsidized work, the job retention. So is this job readiness and the what does comp earn fare? Is that part of earn fare, not?
Earn fare. That's part of the supportive services.
Okay, so but the community work could be filled out, and the community work means?
Community work. So a customer may be working at their child's school or working at the park or doing community work.
Community service. So Mr. McMorris is saying that subsidized work is not applicable either?
No, we're not doing subsidized work. So we're doing community work. We're doing job search readiness, vocational training, basic education, self-employment, substance abuse, domestic violence.
So all of these things on the right-hand side over here.
Right.
Okay. And they could do job retention because we do have a 90-day job retention component.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then they fill out the time or the start date and
Right.
the hours that they've done within that month. And the hours need to equal or exceed 80.
Well, 80 for the entire month.
80 for the
20.
entire month.
20 a week.
And it can be a maximum of?
The maximum, it can go over that, but for our ABI customers, we want to make sure that they are completing at least 80 a month.
Okay, but they can go up to as many as?
They can go over 80. We don't know, we can't say the amount that they can go over, but for right now, we're saying at least do the 80 for the 20 hours a week.
Okay. Okay. All right, and then under the next section, and I'm just going to work from this document here, these are the next two sections where we need to complete the progress activity. So do you want to explain what each of those items mean on there?
So as you're working with the customer, you want to make the, you want to monitor the customer and seeing what their progress is. If it's minimal progress, you want to select that. Non-cooperation, acceptable progress. Conciliation means the customer has not cooperated at all or have not came to the work and training facility. Substantial progress or is completed. So they want to select the section that's applicable to the customer. The recommended course of action for the client, the program completed, no change continues, SNAP program, joint staffing needed, amend SP copy attached, additional referrals is needed, or recommendation for sanction. So these are the selections that they would then forward over to that local FCRC so they can make the changes and updates for their customer.
All right, so can they check more than one box in the client's progress on the activity side?
Yes, they can.
So they could say no progress and conciliation or substantial progress and completed?
Exactly, yes.
And then on the recommended course of action, is it one or more?
More apply, you can check.
And what does the SP stand for? No change / continue SP?
SP is what it is somewhere. SNAP program?
Would it be service plan possibly?
That's what my thought was.
I thought I looked it up, but maybe it's service plan.
I do have one question. This is Tammy from on the conciliation checkbox on the left-hand side. If they check that, that means the organization, the community-based organization, is in the process of doing conciliation. Is that correct?
Right. So that means the customer has not cooperated, and once the customer has started with the CBO are responsible for actively progressing the conciliation notices.
So then if they've done their conciliation, their due diligence with that and conciliation, and there's still no response, then potentially like the next month they would come in and check the recommended sanctions and no progress made.
Correct. Well, we want to make sure it's 30 days. If the customer has not cooperated within that time frame of the 2846, the conciliation notice going out, within a 30-day period, we want to make sure that we're within that time frame before we actually consider sanctioning.
So once that notice goes out, they have 30 days for that client to comply, and then after that 30 days is when they would notify you that sanctions are recommended.
Right.
If there's still non-compliance. Okay.
I have to check a box on this.
All right, so we have a couple of questions in the chat pod. It says, so if a customer is engaged in mental health services through the state, the activities cannot be counted?
I'm not
Up here in the right-hand side, mental health, they're participating in group counseling for 5 hours a week.
That can be counted, yes.
It can be counted, okay. And then it says, there's another question that says, do we have to check a box on the right side? So according to what we understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Peoples, they need to check a box up here. They need to fill in a time or a date. So this would be 10/5/16. They need to put how many, and I'm marking subsidized work, and I know that it's not proper.
Okay.
So if I do 15, and then I have to come down here and I mark minimal progress, and then I mark no change, continue SP. Is that what I would be submitting? Obviously, I'm going to fill in 80 hours worth of stuff.
Right.
And that's what I fill out, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, and then is the start date for a month what they did each month?
Right.
Or an overall date?
The overall date is actually when they started the activity.
So if they started the activity today and it's a 6-month training program and they're doing training, the start date would always be October 5th on all of the next 6.
That would be the start date, yes.
Okay. All right. And then, okay, so let's say, we have another question. So let's say someone's plan changes. So we are amending the SP. What does the copy attached refer to?
So you want to make sure then whatever amended changes that you're making, you attach that to the copy. Usually another 2150, you can use another 2151 saying amended, and then you should submit that so the FCRC would know what changes has been made for that customer work and training activity.
So could they use this section on page 3 in the comments to amend the activity? And to say what's going on there.
Oh, yes. I see that, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then we have one, Olivia Grisham and I were trying to go through here. So they fill in any kind of community service work under this community work activity. And does the CBO need to fill out this section where it says client went to work, and in what circumstance, when?
Right. So when the client goes to work, you want to put the employer name, once they actually become employed, the contact person at the employment, their phone number, the address of the employer, the city, the zip, the job title that the customer will be working under, the start date, the final pay date, the wages if they know, and the hours, and the first pay. The reason being is because you're going to forward that over to the local office, and that's how they're going to budget that income for that customer, depending on what the first pay date is.
Okay.
So that information is definitely the most important of all, especially when a client has successfully found a job.
Great.
Okay.
All right. And then we do have, okay, so Carmen is asking for a real-life example. Someone moved from ABE Bridge to vocational training. I don't think that's a change in their plan because on your initial document, so let's talk about the initial document a little bit, Ms. Peoples. With the initial document, we are suggesting, let me go back to my document that I have here. We are suggesting that on the initial submission, we're looking at this second right here, is what you put up for the planned activities for the customer, everything that needs to be included. So if the customer is doing ABE, and then they're going to vocational training, and then they're going to do work experience, and then they're going to do job search activities, all of that is going to be on their initial 2151A.
That is correct, but it can be amended. So whenever there's something else added or the customer is no longer in that training or vocational activity, then you want to submit a new form so the worker will know that the customer is no longer engaged. The coding should reflect what the customer is actually doing. So if there's any amendment, it should be a new form submitted so we can have the coding corrected.
All right. And so then on the monthly submission of a 2151A, we're asking our CBOs to submit them between the 1st and the 5th of each month, in which you were working with the customer, and you will report those actual activities in which the customer was engaged. So does that start date stay, that October 5th date, or does it change with that month? That was one of our questions.
Okay, I'm really not sure about that question. I would have to consult with my bureau chief. I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Because they work with the employers, the CBOs, so they would know more of that. That unit works with the CBOs, and I don't, so I really don't know the date or the time frame.
Okay, so I'm making a note, and we'll follow up with you after the webinar about this.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, and then if there's any changes in activity, so for example, if somebody, if you discover that your customer is going to need more English as a second language skills, because they're not as proficient as they needed to be to get a GED, you can use the 2151A to submit the change in that activity level so that you can focus more on the ESL rather than the GED. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right. Now we've got another question. Okay. If a client goes to work, do we need to document that on each 2151A? Yes. You also need to mark that in the ISTEP and on the progress page in EPIC. And then should the CBO send a request for sanction with the top part of the 2151A completed and then request sanction stating they didn't attend? Okay. Okay, so then so for example, we put up here course of action. If you've already done a conciliation appointment, so right here we've got, are these statements correct? If a customer is not cooperating, you may need to request a joint staffing and or recommend sanction.
That's
correct. You cannot recommend a customer for sanction until a customer has not attended a scheduled conciliation appointment or does not abide by the agreement noted in the 3392 form. Is that a correct statement?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We will get this document reviewed by Ms. Peoples to make sure that everything is correct, and then we will share this on the EPIC Partner Resource page so that you know exactly what you need to do to fill out this document. Do we have any questions that I missed?
Dee, I do have one question. I guess it's a comment, this is an assumption, which I hate doing that. But on the plan document, when they submit their very first plan document and they check all the activities that they're planning for this client, they would not put any start dates or hours because this is just a planning function and it's not an actual. And so I'm assuming that is correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
You want to actually put the date and the time when the customer is actually engaged in any work and training activity.
Right. So we need to be clear of what a planning 2151A looks like compared to the actual. So the plan won't have dates where the actual will, because it's an activity that's happened. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's it. I don't see any other questions coming from the audience.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys for inviting me.
Wait a minute. McMorris is typing, so we need to want to go back to coding. And I assume he's talking about the numbers that are showing up in this code column. The 78683. 7. I see 83. I don't see 86. And 89. Okay. You're with Wesley right now, so I emailed this document to her for review. So if you want to help her reply to the email with any corrections that you need to this document, we will make sure that those are appropriately documented.
I'll tell them.
Okie doke. All right. All right. I don't see any other questions. Or I do see some people typing. Oh. Okay, so Sarah, are the codes that McMorris typed in, 783, 784, 788, and 789, are they still usable or unusable codes for DHS?
Was that for Sarah? You know what? She had to go because she had to continue the meeting that she had downstairs. So
Okay.
any of the other questions, if we can just send an email to her, I'm sure she'll be able to respond, and then we can clarify and get this all taken care of.
Okay. All right. McMorris, if you can send that to them, then that would be great.
And I guess, Dee, this is Tammy. I got a question for Mr. McMorris. I know those are exemptions, client exemptions, but can those be used for number of hours during a month for activities? So if they're participating in any of those codes and say they have, 3 hours a week, can that be included in their 20 hours? That would be my question in this whole line of questions that we've got there.
But if they're voluntary participants, so McMorris is saying we have to follow the medical exemption process for medical. Customers are exempt if they are in substance abuse.
Oh, that's true. Okay, I understand, because they're volunteer. So the number of hours, there's no sanctions related to that. If they don't do 80 hours for a volunteer participant, there's no repercussion as far as sanctions is concerned. So that makes sense. I understand that now.
So they would have to have 80 hours on top of?
No, the 80 hours a month is mandatory for the mandatory population. For the voluntary population in the EPIC program, we want to strongly recommend it, but there's no sanctions related to that if they don't fulfill that obligation. And Mr. McMorris, correct me if I'm not stating that correctly, but we cannot sanction a volunteer. We can sanction somebody that is mandatory.
That's a correct statement as of today.
Yeah, and but what we want to do in the EPIC program is, even if they volunteer, we still want them engaged. So if they're not participating, the CBOs, we want you to reach out to them. We want you to keep them active. We would like for them to, to be doing the 80 hours, because if they're going to be getting to a point of self-sufficiency, if they're going to be working, they're going to be working, at least 30 hours, you would think, or 20 to 30 hours a week. So So we need to promote even the volunteer population to be really engaged if they're going to be successful in this program. The difference is that we cannot sanction them as a result of reduced hours.
So Carmen is asking if we are referred a client with mental health, medical, substance abuse, domestic violence issues that they either did not divulge or DHS didn't pick up on, do we refer them back? We have tried to do this in the past and it didn't work. And then there's another question that says, how do you record hours for those waiting for conciliation? Well, if they haven't shown up, you're not going to have any hours to report, correct? Is that right, Daryl? Because they're not showing up. That's more than likely the reason why they're going through conciliation. So it would be zeros, and it would be you would probably note it on a case note in EPIC, and you would note it on the page 3 of the 2151A. Okay, no hours are there, but once we call them in, the customer also voluntarily drops themselves from participation as well. Okay, so then they become a voluntary participant. All right.
Okay, and we will, like I said, this document is in draft at this time, so DHS is vetting it, for the correct information. The reason we wanted to bring this up is because during our FNS visit, Jackie, who's our liaison, looked at both sides. They looked at the CBO side and they looked at the DHS side, and there seemed to be confusion on both sides. The DHS was seeing these documents coming in filled out differently than what they're used to seeing. And so we want to make sure that we're complying with DHS policies and in the way that they want their documents completed. And there's definitely, a communication on our part to our CBOs on how to complete this. So that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to make sure that we're providing clear communications to the CBOs exactly how to complete this 2151A document so that DHS, it meets DHS policy and requirements. And then the other thing also is there was a little bit of a disconnect between what was on the 2151A and what was in the ISTEP. So an example may have been that you had them in a vocational training program, but in your ISTEP, you didn't show that they had anything in as a academic benchmark for that. So like Olivia said, we've got a lot of clients that are sitting out there in academic training that don't have any services. So we really need for you guys to go in and start adding the appropriate services to these clients. And so this is a way we're going to be monitoring you guys too, is we can take a look at the 2151A and see what you've coded as far as services, and then also see if that's reflective of what you've got in their ISTEP plan.
So Carmen asks, do we need to go back and correct all of the previous 2151As or just redo the initial and do the monthly correctly going forward? I would say that would be the case. Just make sure that everybody's initial 2151A, their incoming one, is correct. So for example, I've got boxes marked for what that 2151A should look like. And initially when they come in, they're going to be acceptable. There's going to be no change. They're going to just continue. And then maybe they're going to do some community service. They're going to do job search, vocational. We don't have ESL listed on here, So you would probably mark other for ESL and then just make a note, or maybe even just type in the hours in the box there, just type ESL in there so that we know what the other stands for. All right, so that's a lot of time that we just spent on the 2151A, but I think we needed that because we do have some CBOs that are struggling with some of this. And again, if there's any change, as soon as people don't show up, case note everything in EPIC and fill out these documents and send them up so that DHS knows what's going on. Use them as your partner so that you're not trying to work this totally alone. It's hard enough in the mandatory areas, but it's especially hard in the voluntary areas because there is no sanction available. So use that DHS partner as a beneficial resource to help you move these customers through the process. All right, I'm going to minimize my screen. And if you didn't already get a chance, answer this poll question. Olivia, let's go back to the dashboard and finish up any questions that we had there. So I'm going to make your screen bigger.
So give me 1 second.
All right, and I totally lost. I know we had a question back a little bit ago. Okay, Kelsey asked a question. I may have missed this, but did we address the personal development steps? Most of our customers will not have any steps in this area.
Correct, yeah.
So should we add a step that says no steps needed, just so that they don't show up on the dashboard as no steps?
Yeah, I can talk to Natasha and Cody about doing something like that if, because that might be helpful. I just don't know how soon it would be able to be pushed out. But the personal development steps, that's not every customer will need steps in that area.
All right, and then Mary Beth asks, we've recommended sanction on several of our referrals. Do we need to do anything with the ISTEP while we are awaiting the response? And it looks like it's for no-shows, etc. Kelsey wants to know the answer to that, too.
No, if after you've recommended sanction for them, you're not going to be engaging them anymore. So you don't have to continue on with the ISTEP or anything like that. Now, if the customer were to come back to you and want to be re-engaged, then you would go ahead and notify DHS that you're re-engaging this customer and continue on like normal. But for customers who are going through sanction, you don't have to continue doing any of the ISTEP or uploading.
Megan's asking a question about career pathways. Is security armed, unarmed, a training program that any of the CBOs offer? If not, can EPIC? I do know that we do have at least one provider offering security guard training because it is showing up as a program when people do the training program review in step 3 in the orientation. Off the top of my head, I don't know what area that is being offered in. I am almost positive it's in Region 1, but I don't remember who the provider is. Tammy, do you happen to know?
Not off the top of my head, but Megan, if that is something that you're interested in including in your scope of work, you can communicate with me and any of the CBOs. If you're finding that you have, say, some employers that are coming on and jobs coming into your area that you develop as a relationship, And, you'll be able, if you provide this training to these SNAP recipients, it's a good feeder to get these individuals employed. We can always look at your scope of work and modify your scope of work. We're going to have to modify those anyway, hopefully in the near future, because we'll have to add money. We only put 50% of the funds out to the organization. So I'm hoping here soon, as the clients start rolling in, we'll be looking at modifying your grants to increase your funding levels also. So, and can we bring up that survey too while do you have anything else, Olivia, on the dashboard?
No, I do not. So yeah, you want me to pull up the survey?
Yeah, I just wanted to, we are going to be doing a monkey survey with you guys. DHS is working on, it's called third-party matching, and I'm not going to get into that much, but one of the things that we want to do through EPIC is determine your assets. And so we're just kind of do a little bit of an asset mapping with you guys. So this survey is going to be coming out to you here in the near future. What we want to find out, and it doesn't have, you don't have to come back, tell me exact, to the penny dollar amounts. But what does your funding streams look like? How much money do you get from foundations? How much do you get from private and corporate donors? I mean, how much money from fundraising? How much money do you get from state grants? And when I'm talking about state grants, I mean grants that are funded out of state revenue, not federal pass-through. So some of you may have money that comes from, say, Department of Commerce. That is WIOA money, but that is actually federal money because that's federal pass-through from the state. So we want to look at just state money that is provided or that you receive in grants or contracts. And then, we want to know what those sources are, and then also federal, resources. So if you're a WIOA provider, approximately how much money you get from that. So we would just want to kind of do a little bit of asset mapping. So what we're going to look at with this then is what's out there in the community-based area that is potentially eligible in future programs to be used as a match. And specifically, we'd be looking at anything that's non-federal. So we're just kind of looking at the landscape right now and just seeing what could potentially be available for matches, in the future. Like I said, so I just want to make you aware of this. This is something that is going to be coming out here in the near future, and we'll give you a date to get that back in. There is DHS. It's a very strong effort on their part that they're working on to go for these third-party matching funds. And then one other thing I wanted to tell you guys is we, Department of Commerce fiscal unit is going to be looking at your quarterly reports that we're submitting. So they're going to be looking at your DGR specifically on the financial side and then your trial balances. So if you get a call, and I will get a list out to you. I don't have that available for this call, but next Wednesday we'll have the list of who the individuals are that are assigned to your organization. But if you get a call from Commerce out of the Employment Training Fiscal Department, that's who it is. And so they may ask you for some additional information. Basically on that report, what we have to have is you guys are entering your costs in the GRS, and then we have your trial balances. So when they're looking at that, whatever costs that you've entered on the GRS needs to correlate with your trial balance. And if they don't, that's fine. But what you need to do is provide a crosswalk for us so we can understand that. And we had a training on this before, but we can provide this again if it's needed. So what we need to be able to do is look at the trial balance and say, oh, okay, I understand how the costs were attributed in our grant reporting system. So I just wanted to make you aware if you get a call from somebody from Commerce dealing with that is legitimate. They are calling and they're going to be asking for information on that. And then our quarterly reports will be due again the end of this month, and we'll discuss that on a later webinar also.
Okay. We did have a question from Carmen. I don't know if everybody read it. Asking about subsidized work. You do not use the subsidized work option. You only use the work experience option. So that hopefully answers that question. And
it's not that you can't have them in subsidized work necessarily. It's just EPIC only pays for work experience. So an example may be, I know some of our providers that are also WIOA providers could have these individuals in an OJT because they're co-enrolled in WIOA services. But that would be actually shown on their under the WIOA services.
Okay, so Carmen, what is your question? And while she's asking that, let me move on to Friday. We have doing introductions to DHS. We have Inspiration Corporation, Southland Healthcare, and CAPS. And I think I received an email from LaTanya from CAPS that said that they may not be able to do that. So does anybody else want to volunteer? And then from Inspiration Corporation, I need the name and phone number of the person who is going to be doing the call.
And Carmen, to answer yours, the question regarding if you don't know on that initial appointment with them if they are going to be receiving work experience, I wouldn't check it on their plan. You can always submit, another new plan as you add the components to them. But I wouldn't necessarily check work experience if that's something that you're not sure that you're going to be putting them in.
Thank you, Margaret. All right. Did we answer, would it be the same with job retention since we don't know if they will get a job? Well, the goal is to get somebody a job, so I would hope that we would have job retention, but again, you can always make the amendment.
Yeah, and I would recommend job retention, because that is definitely a goal of the program. I mean, work experience is a component, but the outcome is that we want these individuals in jobs, so that should be checked really probably on all of them.
Okay, we've got 3 areas marked in the section where you have questions. We have 3 people that marked that they have a question about ISTEP. So did we answer your question already? If not, please type your questions about ISTEP in the chat pod. Are the personal development steps necessary? We kind of said no, they're not, and Olivia is going to check with our programmer and Natasha to see if that is an option that we can create so that under the personal development steps they would show up that it's not, that you don't have a step in there. Any other questions about ISTEP that we did not answer already? And then uploads, we have one person that had a question about uploads. And then conciliation, we have 2 people that had said that they, you pull over this. Is this what you're talking about, Tammy? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Okay. So if they didn't have a chance to respond, they can.
Okay. The question about academic technical training that you are calling me about. Oh, okay. All right. And I do see a couple other people typing. So for the conciliation, on the initial 2151A form, do you check acceptable progress or what? I would check, on the initial one, I would check acceptable progress because they haven't done anything bad or great yet. you're correct. All right, and I see a couple other people typing, and they're both guys, so I don't know how fast their fingers type. Can we scan items up in the system now? You can upload scanned items, but you can't scan them into the system. Okay, thanks, Daryl. We can't, you can't scan the 2151. You have to fill it out on the Adobe Reader. You can scan it if it has the medical signatures, but you still have to upload the Adobe Acrobat one. Adobe Reader. And Ronald's still typing, so does anybody else have any questions about anything that we already did? You would upload a scanned version of the 2151, but you need to upload both the Adobe Acrobat version and the signed version. And there's the two different buttons. Let me pull my screen over and get into, okay, come on, mouse work. So in test, oh, I don't have an extra one open. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is test. Let's move. All right, so in test, what you would do, or I'm in test, but what you would do is under the initial CBO upload, you would upload the completed 2151 form here that you did in Adobe Reader or Adobe Acrobat. And then you would also upload a scanned 2151 if they have the signature by the medical areas or the special areas. Okay, does that answer your question, Ron? Uh-oh, he's typing more than a yes or no. It won't read a scanned 2151A. It will only read an Adobe Reader or an Adobe Acrobat 2151A. On the 2151, you can upload that. Now, if you need to upload a different document with a signature under the 2151A section, you upload other document and then name it something different. Okay. All right. All right. I don't see anybody else typing, so I'm going to minimize my screen. And I did not get another volunteer for Friday to replace caps, so hopefully we get somebody. Just let me know by email.
If not, we'll recruit.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cheryl. Okay.
Well, guys, thank you guys for the hard work. We're going to be doing a lot more work on the CBO side. There's going to be technical visits coming up here soon. So we want to get at the ground level with you guys and see what's working and not working, and start sharing some ideas on how to help you guys make this a successful program. So I really appreciate everybody's work on this.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Enjoy.